All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory be unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Makar Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone that rule well. Peace, salutations, and blessings to the hopeful elect, pushing this truth in sincerity throughout the four corners of the globe, in the sincere hopes of being delivered in these last days. All right, this is the brother Yakanan from the GMS England branch. This is going to be a real brief one. I've just come across this report that you see here on the screen. This is taken from MSN.com, and it says Zia Yusuf tears into Orwellian online safety law in censorship warning. And as you can see, it says surveillance state. Okay, and as pursuing, to prophecy, as pursuing to let's get it right quick before we get into the article. As pursuing to Amos chapter 8 and verse 11, the scriptures tell us, "Behold, the days come, saith the Lord power, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of the Lord. And they shall wander from sea to sea, and from the north, even from the east, even to the east, Salakia, they shall run to and fro to seek the word of the Lord, and shall not find it." Okay? So the time is coming where you're not going to be able to access, to listen to be edified from the words of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. Okay, that time is coming. All right, the cutoff point of the street ministry, the cutoff point of the internet ministry, okay, is coming to a close. And again, that is biblical prophecy, as we just read in Amos chapter 8 and verse 11. All right, the Lord is going to remove his voice, and his voice is in form of his prophets. All right, his men that are out there on the highways and the byways preaching this word in truth and in sincerity. The Lord is going to remove his men, and that is called the famine of the word. Okay, you're not going to be able to access the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai, which is why when you go to Isaiah chapter 50 and verse 6, or is it 55 and 6? Let's try 55 and verse 6. Yeah, Isaiah 55 and verse 6. That's why it says this: "Seek ye the Lord while he may be found, call ye upon him while he is near." Okay? So that gives us an indication that there's a time frame for receiving the words of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai, all right, for being able to listen to the words of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai and be edified. There's a time frame, okay? Now, of course, the elect, the chosen, okay, are going to get it within that time frame, all right? Anyone outside of that time frame, all right, that just simply means you wasn't of the elect, and his truth wasn't for you, okay? Because the Lord is going to lead his elect, to the word, all right? And as we always mention, you're going to have sincere men, in different groups that have off doctrines, and them sincere men are going to leave those groups if they're of the elect, okay? IUIC, ISUPK, whoever, wherever you at, all right? If you're of the elect, your eyes are going to open up, and you're going to realize that you're a part of something at the moment that is not representing the 100% truth of the Holy Scriptures, all right? The pure truth concerning the divine doctrine from Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai, okay? And we believe through faith that divine doctrine, all right, that truth, that ultimate 100% truth that we speak of, it is beginning with Apostle Tahar and down to the other apostles and elders and brothers of Great Millstone, okay? That's what we believe through faith, and time will tell, Okay, time will tell in these very last days who had the truth, man. Okay, so back to this article. So it says Zia Yusuf tears into Orwellian online safety law in censorship warning, surveillance state. All right, and we've been telling you that the surveillance state, warning you, that the surveillance state is coming. Okay, how they're gonna, control what you can and what you can't say, how everything is gonna be on a censorship, basis. Okay, now check this out. It says Zia Yusuf has warned of an attack on online free speech, claiming Britain is being plunged into a Chinese-style surveillance state. Now, we've done many videos on the Chinese, surveillance state, okay? And it's very harsh. It's very draconian, and that's the same state that they're trying to bring to life, over here in the UK. And, of course, Babylon the Great, which is America. All right, that Chinese-style surveillance state is coming, and if you will, them having it over there in China, that's really a trial run. Okay, there's documentaries you can see of it. You can see how draconian it is. You can see how harsh it is. If you don't have a good social credit standing, you can't even have broadband. You can't get on a train. You can't get on a plane. Okay, it's very harsh over there. And that's the same reality that they're going to bring, over here to the UK and of course in Babylon the Great. Okay? So it says, speaking to GB News, the chair of Reform UK's Doge unit tore into the Orwellian legislation of the Online Safety Act following the introduction of new rules. The government's latest move to protect children online means that websites operating in the UK with pornographic content must now robustly age check users. Okay, so that was, the big thing, that was highlighted with this Online Safety Act, was that, it was supposedly, to protect children, which we know they don't care, about the children or the content that the children are watching online. This is all to gain control and to take away the perceived liberty that you believe you have. That's what it's all about. All right, it's all about control. Now it says here, Zia Yusuf has branded the Online Safety Act Orwellian. Speaking to GB News host Ben Leo, Yusuf explained, "I want to make sure everyone understands that this Online Safety Act, Orwellianly named, is plunging this country into a Chinese-style surveillance state. There are two key things I want to flag inside the act, all right? And this is, what you need to pay attention to. It says Section 44, which allows the Secretary of State to unilaterally, all right, if I pronounced that correctly, force Ofcom to change the rules about what needs to be censored and what doesn't without an act of parliament, without a vote. So basically, it's a death knell to democracy in that respect, okay? So that's complete control of information. That's complete control at will, all right, and adjustments to the law that they can make concerning things that are being said, what's deemed acceptable and what's deemed as not acceptable, okay? Which again, like he said, that's a death knell, to so-called democracy, all right? Now let me read that again. So it says, so that allows to force Ofcom to change the rules about what needs to be censored and what doesn't without an act of parliament. All right, so it doesn't need to be passed through parliament. They can just do it willingly, whenever they please. Okay, they can adjust the rules on what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. That's power. Now it says the second one is Section 179, which is even more insidious, which what it does is make it illegal to say something that is false, that causes non-trivial psychological harm. And it's not just making that illegal, it is forcing social media companies to proactively censor that speech, okay? So it makes it illegal to say something that is false. Now, we're living in a time where you have an abundance of fake news circulating online, okay? Which enforces even more so that you have to be very careful what information you bring out. You have to be very, particular about your words that you're using, okay? Because there's a lot of fake information out there, and they could use that, all right, to potentially and, inevitably, lock people up, okay, if they deem it to be fake news or they deem it to be incorrect or so on and so forth. And again, they're always changing the narrative. There's always a mixture of opinions and different sources of information that's out there. So in this world full of confusion, okay, it's even hard to decipher what's real from what's not. And that's why we stick to the scriptures. All right, that's why we stick to, the prophecies of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, all right, of the Holy Bible, ultimately. Okay, now, of course, we delve into different pieces of information and we filter it, through the scriptures, all right, as according to biblical prophecy and as according to 2nd Ezra, the 9th chapter. Okay, but this just gives you a glimpse, if you will, a warning as to what they're planning, in these last days to incriminate people. Okay, so it says, let me read that again. The second one is section 179, which is even more insidious. What it does is make it illegal to say something that is false, that causes non-trivial psychological harm. And it's not just making it illegal, it is forcing social media companies to proactively censor that speech. So you might bring out a video, bring out information, and a small hat can stumble upon that information and get offended because, you said that, according to the Bible, we are not the people, which is the truth. Okay, it's biblical. All right, and that's our faith. Our faith is that we, the Negroes, Hispanics, and Native American Indians, and anyone for your father that goes back to the line of Jacob, our belief and our faith is that we are indeed, the true children of Israel. Okay, and then they want to state that claim too, but they're not going to get in trouble for stating that claim. All right, but we will. Okay, and that shows you the hypocrisy of this system and of the setup of the devil. Okay, all of a sudden it's a problem, when the true people of the book, want to, state their claim. All right, with prophetic proof. All right, but the small hats with no fulfilling prophecies, ticking no boxes of prophecy or the scriptures, it's okay for them to do it though, which shows you that, again, Job 9 and 24, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. That just shows you that they run everything. Okay, because you can't criticize them. So it says, warning of the impact of the act on social media censorship. Yusuf stated is going to create an incentive structure for social media companies to over-censor because that's the rational thing to do if you're trying to protect shareholder value. Now it says, new rules as part of the Online Safety Act were introduced on Friday. And we've already seen in less than 48 hours since this thing has come into force, we've seen protests against migrant hotels in Leeds being actively censored on X, which, thanks to Elon, is supposed to be the last bastion of free speech, which that's all, a lie. All right, that was a setup. And we're seeing tweets which criticize immigration being censored, criticizing the previous conservative government for introducing the legislation. Yusuf told GB News, we are slipping into a world which would frankly make Xi Jinping blush. And I want to remind the viewers, as much as Keir Starmer is an abomination. Yeah, I knew it said that, but I was thinking, why do they use that word? Abomination, and we despise this Labour government. It was the Tories who created this whole situation. It was the Tories who voted it through pretty much unanimously. All right? So this is, the state of affairs now concerning this new this new law, which is effectively, coming to play. All right. It's becoming a surveillance state like China. Okay. And things are becoming, more restricted, and, it's about to be even more damning and damaging, to speak the truth. All right. And the scriptures go into that in, it might even be in Isaiah 59. Let's get it right quick. Isaiah 59, and I believe it's around the 15th verse. All right. Yeah, so Isaiah chapter 59 and verse 15. It says, "Yea, truth faileth, and he that departeth from evil maketh himself a prey. And the Lord saw it, and it displeased him that there was no judgment." Okay, so we're living in a time, all right, where they're causing truth, to fail. But as we understand and as we know, the truth of the Holy Bible, the truth of Yahweh Shem Yahushai will prevail. All right, it will not fail. But this is the agenda, all right, to try and shut down all forms of truth. Okay, they want it to be a world where you have to follow the narrative, and if you don't follow the narrative, you'll be demonized and you'll be banished from the grid. Okay, so again, yea, truth faileth, and he that departeth from evil maketh himself a prey. So those that are really, pushing the truth out here, all right, is the prophets of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, preaching the Bible. So we will become a prey, and have already become a prey for preaching the words of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Okay, so we are the target because we are preaching the truth. All right, and anyone, in that matter that's preaching any form of truth that goes against the system, you too will become a prey. All right, and this is happening right now upon the earth. Now in the NLT it says, "Yes, truth is gone, and anyone who renounces evil is attacked. The Lord looked, and it displeased, and was displeased to find there was no justice." And that's why this kingdom is going to get destroyed, because there is no justice in this kingdom. And even when we go into the book of Habakkuk, it tells us that, the law is slacked and judgment doth never go forth. Okay, we're living in a slack world that's being ruled and dominated, by the wicked and their vibration. So that's why the Lord is going to, completely annihilate this place, man. Okay. Now there's another scripture that's come to mind where it speaks about becoming an offender for a word. All right. All right, here it is. It's Isaiah chapter 29 and verse 20. And it says, "For the terrible one is brought to naught, and the scorner is consumed, and all that watch for iniquity are cut off, that make a man an offender for a word, and lay a snare for him that reproveth in the gate, and turn aside the just for a thing of naught." Okay? Now in the NLT it says, "Those who convict the innocent by their false testimony will disappear. A similar fate awaits those who use trickery to pervert justice and who tell lies to destroy the innocent." This is the time that we're living in right now. Okay? You can become an offender for a word, all right, for the things that you say, all right, for the spirit that you're coming in, and for coming against the system that's pushing evil. Okay? So I'm going to cut it off there. Lord willing, this lesson has been edifying. And until the next one, I'll say shalom.